True Self-Talk, that is a live stream right after our monthly free energy session with people from all around the world. This month, August 24, we are coming together here to dive into these intense full moon energies. And while the lunar cycles might not be important to some of you, I always urge you to pay attention to this. So don't worry, we're not going to go deep into astrology here. We are investigating our inner experience of our, say, higher self, of our soul self. And that's the purpose of these monthly sessions, for you to connect with your true self. And as we're doing this here as a group, and myself sort of facilitating this room, this energetic room for us to do this, stuff comes up, things come up. Now, there'll be things that we all feel sort of as the energetic weather conditions, and we're going to talk about this right now before we go into the individual experiences. And then we can see or feel or hear, it's different for each and every one of you, how you tune in with your true self. Sort of what our own aspects are, what the things are that we need to pay attention to. Hi, my name is Jona Bryndis, and I'm an energy healer, energy coach, and trainer. I've been doing this for now nearly 20 years, training other energy healers and professionals to tune into the energy field of others and their own, for the sake of self-healing, but also for the sake of supporting and assisting others. For 12 years now, we have been doing this Connect with Your True Self session. And this particular session comes at a time now where connecting with our true self is no longer really some kind of spiritual, magical exercise, where it becomes a very, very practical first aid tool. Yeah? Spiritual first aid. Just a quick reminder, everyone, could you please turn off your microphones? And yeah, wonderful. So that we don't accidentally hear your background noises on top of mine. I'm sitting here in my healing tent outside in the middle of nature, sharing the space with lots of birds, occasional bears, two at the nighttime, my 3 dogs, and lots of flowers. So what you hear in the background are sort of nature sounds in the summertime. All right, so what's so particular about this time, and why am I calling Connecting with Your True Self a spiritual first aid tool? That is because we are living in a time right now where we have very, very heavy bombardment from the outside. It has always been, for us humans, it has always been a challenge to discern what is ours and what is other people's, or what is coming in from the outside, what is coming in from the inside. But right now, this is so much that is coming in that it has more than ever become hard to discern what we actually need to pay attention to. So these sort of 3 rules, right? Is it true? Is it important? And is it helpful? Okay, this is the old Greek saying, okay? Socrates actually came up with this. Counts more than ever, guys. Is it true? Is it important? Is it helpful? This will help you to set priorities. This will help you to focus on the things that you want to focus on. And most importantly, this is really sort of the mantra for this month, August 24. It helps you to hear, to find your own voice. In this onslaught of outer things happening, be it through news, through social media or media, all the things that are going on in the world that we have so easy access to nowadays, are taking a toll on us. And those of you joining me here from all over the world, you're designated self-healers. You are already on the more energetically sensitive and empathic side of things, which means that connecting with your true self is even more important for you because it allows you to discern what is true, what is important, and what is helpful. So let's dive into the session here. I don't know about you. How did the session feel for you? Let's go through the different layers here of our own bodies. We have the physical layer, that is, what we experience in the material and the physical. Then we have the emotional. Then we have the mental, intellectual, the mental, intellectual. And then we have the level of our consciousness, our self, our I. All right. Who would like to share? How was the session like for you? Where did you feel the session? Did you feel a bit more in your body going through certain systems? Yeah, your legs perhaps, or your head, or your throat. You can hear. I have a little bit going on in my throat, yes. Faye, you felt it in your heart. And that's always a good sign. Did you feel it in your emotions? Did you have sudden feelings come up, sudden memories perhaps that triggered emotions in you? Or did you just have, out of the blue, sort of sensations of inner feelings? Anybody?
Jona, yeah. I have to say I found it very challenging. I was, a little bit of me was like, oh, why did I do this? Because I was in good form, you could say, for the day. And I found it very challenging. But maybe that has to do as well because I was in the car driving, finding myself feeling agitated. But then, there's the, in the distance, the calmer, more peaceful.
You're blipping out a little bit. You're blipping out a little bit. It's a bit hard to understand. Okay. But
sorry. I don't know if it's better.
That is a little better, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just so kind of agitation, but I was driving, so for some of it, so just it really felt like picking up on outside stuff. So now I'm parked in front of the sea. I actually just went into the sea for a few minutes before I came on this, and it settled me down again. But it just makes me think that my true self just, a peaceful heart. And my heart is racing a little bit, actually. It was racing a little bit.
So, driving during an energy session is okay if you know how to basically shelter or insulate your energy from outer stuff. Because when you're driving, think about it. I mean, when you're walking or biking, you have this too, but it's a lot slower, so you have a lot more time to adjust. But when you're driving, you're going through so many different sort of spaces, energetic pockets, that unless you do it like I do it, I either listen to audiobooks or have some music in that really sort of keeps me with myself, all right? Yeah, but while you can still stay focused on the traffic. For most people, doing energy sessions while driving is not recommendable. Yeah, this takes a lot of practice to be able to hold your own energy while you are forced to interact with outer energies. Yeah, it is a lot easier, like you just shared, when you're in a place, in a still place where you're in full control of what you're doing, and preferably also sort of nature, not so crowded, not too many people. It's a lot easier. So we all know that it's easy when you're on your own, on a mountaintop or on a deserted island, okay, than in the middle of a shopping center or mall or a theme park, okay? And that is because we are constantly interacting with other people's life force, with other people's etheric energy without us being aware of it. So this needs to be clear to us. It needs to be clear to us that that is like an amplifier. And so when you are, whatever the situation is that you're in, where you're even more exposed to outer energies, you need to understand that most of what you're experiencing is not necessarily your own. It might trigger your own, but it is not your own. So you can't really take everything so personally. All right? You're just going to have to kind of get on with it. Okay? If this is, how you're feeling right now, if you have to go to the mall or through the grocery store or whatever, get on with it. Make sure that you have a good sort of clearing method for yourself, like taking a deep breath, grounding yourself, nothing fancy, just, even just stepping in your car and closing your eyes and taking, a few sort of deeper breaths can allow you to sort of clear this out of your system. So that's what you did with going into the ocean. Yeah?
Yep.
Because, you just let this go. And using elementals is always very helpful. So, you can use wind, you can use fire, you can use the earth, and you can use the water. That goes very, very fast. Okay? But what happens then, and this is the interesting part because it really relates to the session, is that once you sort of cleared out the stuff that came in from the outside, well, what's left? What do you think is left? Your stuff, right? Yeah. All right, and this is the purpose of connecting with your true self, is to be able to discern. Do you know what I mean? So what is mine and what is true, what is important, what is helpful, okay? So there's a phrase in the invocation that I gave you guys with the instructions, and it says, I'm calling for the clearing of my emotions and mind. And I wanted to discuss this with you a little bit because I think that we sometimes misunderstand that. So thank you for sharing, Emer. This would be a typical situation and a wonderful example for why we need a good sort of spiritual first aid, energetic first aid, because it's exactly what I just said. The bombardment coming in from the outside, and it's subtle, so you don't really know, what it is or where it comes from. It takes a lot of practice to actually, have a clear direction with it. And if it's just random people or random areas that you go through, chances are you won't be able. It's not even important, for you to know, where exactly it comes from. It's just important for you to know that it's not yours, but at the same time that whatever it triggers, okay, is still yours, okay? And that needs to be dealt with at some point. So when I asked you, where the emotions or feelings come up, you shared agitation. And I could totally feel this in the entire field. There's an agitation. But there's also a little bit of, and I think you mentioned this as well, a sort of a feeling of not knowing what to do, of feeling a little bit lost, and just sort of ADHD, like jumping on anything, okay, without having a clear plan, without knowing where we're going. All right, and this was the main theme in this Connect with Your True Self session. How can I see a clearer path, and what do I need to do, okay, to basically to rinse off, to clear off all the stuff that is coming in from the outside, and how can I, sort of see through all this and still maintain connection with myself. So the fact that all this is there is not something that we can change. We will always be exposed. Yeah, that's why I say, that's why I call, my energy forecasts, weather forecasts, energetic weather forecasts. You'll always be exposed to the elements, you'll always be exposed to weather. It's not the fact that the weather is there. It's your inner response to the weather, and either your sympathy or antipathy, your like or your dislike, okay, your inner resonance or resistance toward the weather that is creating, these inner conditions. So when we connect with our true self, we are becoming more aware of these inner conditions, guys. And that is really what we want, because with constantly being exposed by outer energies, it's very difficult for us to actually remember to feel what we should be focusing on. Yeah, what we actually, need to focus on rather than getting distracted. So states of unconsciousness, distraction, and autopilot are the states that basically make you susceptible to outer energies, to darker energies, okay? And that's why, spiritual first aid or energetic first aid techniques are not there to invoke bliss states in you. They're literally there to protect yourself from, all the stuff that is coming in from the outside. But let's go back to the session and let me ask you, here going through the fourfold human energy body. We covered the physical, we covered the emotional. What about thoughts? What were some thoughts that came forward during the session? Thought processes, perhaps. And this might be different for each and every one of us. But I'm trying to assist you in this discernment process, right? Is this a collective thought that you are picking up on? Yeah, that is basically sort of spoon-fed, into your mind, so that is all you can think of? Or is this something that is actually coming in as your true self, your inner guidance? What were some thoughts or strings of thoughts that came forward for you?
To me, hello everyone.
Hi.
To me, it felt a little bit of both. I felt, especially in the first part of the session, I felt a little bit of, I call it a little bit my ego compensation for lack of gratitude for me, for myself, for my true self. And I picked it up very strongly when I was reading the invocation. Mm-hmm. And when it showed up in that projection on other, that I will tell you what you need to know, kind of a thing. That's kind of funny to observe. And I was dealing with that in recent weeks, so it's like ongoing process of letting it go. But when I was reading invocation, it was really clear to me that it has to do with the deeper gratitude for who I am, and realization that I by myself am enough without that need for validation, that externalization. So I somewhat connect that part with collective, because it kind of feels like there is a lot of that comes with anger, fear. Yeah, and a bit of that what I've put in the chat, that feeling that came afterwards, that need for being rather than doing.
Okay.
And for us, like that really beautiful connection to heart at some point, and like that reminder of flow. I saw that beautiful river, and kind of being in that space. Yeah.
Being versus doing. Okay, so and those were thoughts or thought processes that came up in you, Seva. So this was something that you were contemplating, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm super glad that you brought up the invocation. And you basically, referred it to the invocation. This is exactly what the invocation is for. Okay? So as we are saying it's like a mantra, it's like a prayer. All right? Our mind gets focused on certain things, and it's like sort of little nudges. Okay. Do you happen to remember which part of the invocation these kind of thoughts came up with? I always encourage you to, to write down the part of the invocation that kind of sticks out for you, that you remember or hear the most, or that reverberates the most for you. Because there was one for me that was the calling for the clearing of the emotions and mind. Which one was it for you, Seba? Do you happen to remember?
Yes, I do. At the very beginning of the invocation,
Yeah.
I know that I'm a soul with a body, very strongly, and then, very close to an end, in my heart, I feel gratitude and love for myself and everything there is.
So guys, this is a really, really cool example how you can, without sort of having to go into any kind of mystical stuff, all right, tune into your own true self-guidance. You can use this invocation is specifically aligned to this, and see which of these sentences sort of stick out for you. There'll be sentences that you will perhaps almost skip, you won't even hear them. And then there will be sentences that sort of, trigger something in you. So this is cool, Seba. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, these were the sentences that your true self wanted you to pay attention to. Does this make sense? Yeah. So it's
definitely.
Yeah.
It was kind of interesting because kind of dealing with some material world. That was like a really beautiful reminder that no matter what my ego perceives as a threat, that there is a deeper process that is happening that I was feeling throughout the month that has anchor in that understanding that I'm a soul with a body, and that there is that deeper guidance coming through that. That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, thank you again for bringing this up, because this first phrase, I am a soul with a body, and I've explained this on many other occasions, is really the foundation of understanding ourselves, understanding our journey. Without this as a preception, a preception is basically sort of the first principle, the original idea underneath everything that you perceive, underneath your perception. So without that, we can easily get confused. So I am a soul with a body really means that we are a spirit being first and foremost. That is how we see ourselves. That is having a physical experience. So I am a soul with a body basically means I am a spirit being, I'm a soul being, okay, that is having a physical experience to, and now, of course, we can argue or have discourse about what it is, what's the purpose of all this, that we're supposed to experience. My rendering for that is to experience or to have this physical experience of our higher self. And that means the integration that you just mentioned. So it's of course one thing to connect with your soul, to connect with your higher self, with your true self. We often use these terms interchangeably because, at the beginning of our process, of connecting with our spirit self, it doesn't really matter how we call this. It's just like really the soul spirit part in us, the immaterial part in us. And then as you practice that and educate yourself and go the path of spiritual initiation, you will find that there are many different dimensions of this. But for now, this sentence here contains basically an entire universe. When you say to yourself, I am a soul with a body, you are feeding, you are addressing, you are validating that spirit self in you. So Siva, maybe that's the trick. We get called or pulled into our material experience, into our physical experience all day long, every day. But how often are we actually validating our own spiritual self? How often do you say hi to your soul? It's not just about us understanding, sort of the greater us. Yeah. We can only understand a tiny fraction of how big we are. Yeah, that's the truth. But it's another thing to actually recognize that by saying I'm a soul with a body, you're also saying that the soul part in you is much more important than the body part. So the body being the physical experience, those material issues that we plague ourselves with. You see? So gratitude is wonderful that came forward for you, and that's exactly how it goes. But I would like you to go a step farther than that, and I would like you to send this gratitude to your soul self and remember, to validate it. If you feel, or anybody here, we all have this issue with validation and externalization and, wanting guidance and wanting to know what the future brings and so forth. If you have already discovered this as one of the schisms in your life, okay, then my tip for you is to work with your own spirit self, your own soul self, not in any fancy way, just in like saying hi, saying hi a couple times a day, connecting with it. There are many ways how we can connect with our spirit self, our true self. One way is obviously to talk to it or with it. One is to emotionally connect with it, like we do here in our Connect with Your True Self energy session. Yeah, energy session always means holistic. It means we're allowing ourselves to physically, emotionally, intellectually, and, spiritually to connect, with our higher self. Intellectually by, for example, reading an invocation. This basically sorts and focuses your mind back onto what this is truly about. And spiritually, we focus on our higher self in that we actually start seeing this as a relationship, as an interaction, as an exchange of energy. So maybe, Seba, maybe your true self feels a little neglected from you sometimes. And that is then what you feel as lack of validation from other people in 3D. It's worth a shot. Just try it. Any other strings of thoughts or thought processes that came up for you guys? By the way, you can also apply what I just said to the feeling of loneliness, isolation, and not belonging. Yeah. So the conclusion that Seba made, namely that, it is enough, to find ourselves in our relationship with our true self is correct, but it can be misunderstood by our ego. Okay, this doesn't mean that we should isolate ourselves. It doesn't mean that we don't need anybody. On the contrary, it is through the mirror of our relationships, through this exchange, that we grow. See, if we were designed to be solitary beings, I don't think we would have been incarnated, or we would have incarnated into this human form. Our human form is highly interactive, highly communicative, and literally designed to exchange energy, to share, to feel with one another. Yeah, and we all know this. Yeah, there's nothing that expedites our healing, our growing, our expanding more than, being with the right people, finding our tribe, yeah, finding people that resonate with us. So there's a reason for our energetic sensitivity, because that gives you the compass. Most of us haven't figured out yet how to surround ourselves with people that are in line, in tune with our goals, our values, our virtues. So we experience our relationships as struggle, as complicated, as almost hostile, or working against ourselves or us. And when you perceive it this way, all right, then you got to pay attention, because in you there can be sort of a seed of darkness, really, by externalizing it and blaming it on others. This is not what I am saying. Yeah, I'm saying the opposite. It's your job, okay, to find the right people, to find the right environment, all right, that helps you or supports you or invigorates you, that inspires you, that, motivates you to become the best of yourself, yeah, to become your higher self. And if you are in an environment, be it the job or the people or the relationships or the place where you live or whatever, if you feel this is inhibiting you, or like Emma shared, like bombarding, and you constantly sort of have to ward things off, and you're constantly busy just dealing with stuff that isn't even your own, then it's up to you to change this. Yeah? It's up to you to step into this self-responsibility and to say, I'm wasting my energy here. If my life is, constant struggle, constant fighting against windmills, I need to stop that. I need to stop that autopilot that keeps me going, okay, and go within and have a good chat with my true self. And what happens then, first, you feel all these layers that you're dealing with that are exhausting you so much fall off you, and then you feel a little bit empty. Because if you believe it or not, there's a payoff that your ego gets from all these distractions. Do you guys know what that could be? What is the payoff for our ego to constantly dealing with dramas and other people's stuff and politics? And what could our ego possibly get out of this? Does anybody know?
It's pushing away responsibility.
Yes, it gives our ego a good excuse, right? There's nothing I can do about this. This is not right. It allows us to externalize things. We don't have to take responsibility for that. Why is that a payoff for the ego? Doesn't it also make us feel powerless? Oh, yeah, and it disconnects us from our inner space, obviously, because we're constantly sort of outside of ourselves. We constantly get pulled outside of ourselves. So isn't that a bad thing? What could our ego possibly get out of, sort of, say, unconsciously liking struggle and drama?
To me, it kind of refers to victimhood.
Yeah, that goes along those lines, right? Because there's nothing we can do about this. It's so bad, there's nothing we can do about this. But what is the effect of that?
Kind of brings that statement that change is not possible. And,
yes. Yes. That I can't do anything about it. That I don't have a choice. That I don't have a will. Why would your ego make you want to think this way?
you can stay in control, and it's kind of like playing. I kind of sometimes hear that in my head. It's almost like playing God, and kind of replacing my heart connection just with that false self facade in a way.
Yeah. Why do we need control? What does our ego get out of control? Controlling this, that, other people, blah, blah, blah. Always staying on top of things. What does our ego get out of control? Why does it want to control things? Think about it. Do you know why it wants control? So the ego needs control to counteract fear, to counteract anxiousness, to counteract the unknown, the uncertainty. And so the more anxious our thought process is or our inner alignment, the more control we need. Okay? So when the ego can't control, and this is the interesting part, in our own psyche, yeah, if we feel powerless deep down, okay, the more powerless we feel, the more we feel the need to control. It's not the same for everybody, okay? But what's more important to pay attention to is the layer underneath it, namely, what is that supposed to help with? Why does the ego do that? Okay, it's supposed to counteract fear. So your ego isn't really, interested in becoming God. I mean, it often looks like it because it denies, the presence of higher power. That's really what it does. Yeah, it says, oh, well, I am the one that is doing things. I am, this is where life occurs, and that is me. That's what the ego says. Okay, that's not even the biggest issue here. The biggest issue is another one, namely that the ego needs to deal with a bunch of problems, and that is that, well, one day we're going to die, okay, and there is pain and there is fear. These things are factual. That is part of the reality of this physical experience. Now, your higher self, your soul self, doesn't even deal with issues of fear and pain because it doesn't perceive it. It doesn't even connect with that. It doesn't have a body, so it doesn't really feel that. It can feel it through you, okay? And that's maybe where the relationship needs to become a little more clear, yeah, with your own higher self. It's like, okay, when I, do this, and that, okay, you need to let your higher self know how you want to feel. So your higher self will pick up on your feelings, but it will not necessarily put your ego into the consideration. It will not know why you're trying to control things. Your higher self knows that you are not in control, all right? But it doesn't have the emotions to go along with that. So that's where we need to become a little more clear. The purpose of, the payoff that our ego gets out of, perfectionism, performance, competition, fake facade stuff, false self stuff, Seba, like you said, including the validation thing, is that it hopes to eliminate something like powerlessness, okay? And when it cannot achieve it, yeah, then it switches to victimhood. Then it switches to, oh, others are doing this to me. I don't have to take any responsibility. forward. It's not my fault. The problem is it doesn't change anything. So coming back to what we can do, all right, is trying to really learn to regulate that. If you find yourself in a state of victimhood, if you find yourself in a state of constant distraction and autopilot, if you find yourself in a state of, OCD, needing to control everything, okay, you know what that tells you? That tells you that you're not connected with your true self. That tells you that you are, still sort of trying to maintain, like this Godhead over the physical. You're trying to control something that you really can't control. In other words, you're wide open to all the stuff that comes in from the outside. Okay, let me repeat this. So when you are constantly trying to control your environment or other people, or even if it's just your house or, your work or whatever, when you find yourself in a constant state of distraction, when you find yourself in a constant state of like robotic autopilot, where you don't even realize how time goes by, or where you sleep a lot, where you just check out a lot, or you're unconscious a lot, or when you find yourself in a state of victimhood. Others did this to me and they're out there to get me and so forth. When you find yourself in these states, you are wide open to all these outer energies. When you connect within, and this is in self-healing, we use very simple techniques. Breathing, everybody can breathe, deep, sort of centered breathing through your belly. Okay, grounding, sort of closing your eyes, visualizing your energy going deep into the ground. You can obviously do this in elaborate versions, connecting with the heart of Gaia, sort of visualizing roots growing out of your feet, and really sort of going in there with a positive feeling of belonging and connection. And then lastly, the centering in your heart and the openness to, anything that wants to come in as higher guidance. Yeah. So it's basically here, the middle, that is the breath. You want to keep this as open and wide as you can. Then it's basically going down into the earth and connecting yourself with the physicality of your being. And then it's the centering in your heart and opening up sort of the channels to higher consciousness. Okay? So these are the spiritual first aid techniques that I can recommend to you, when these kind of, obstacles come in the way, when it's hard for you to connect with yourself, when it's hard for you to feel your soul self, which right now is obviously something that I would call more like the predominant situation for all of us. Also, something that is very pervasive right now is tiredness. Anybody? Tired all the time. Okay, what is going on? Okay, raise your hand if you're tired all the time, if you're exhausted all the time. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of thumbs up here. So some of that has to do with what I explained earlier, that we live, that right now with this very, very heavy bombardment, mostly through the etheric realm, which is the part that works in our thought and thinking, all right? But also the uncertainty, the fears, and the anger that is sort of percolating in people all around the world. Those conditions in people that create those weather conditions. So we are experiencing our energetic weather conditions always sort of based on, sort of what this entire human collective field expresses, what it exerts, what, sort of comes out of it. It's a little difficult to understand, but it's not so different for those of you who understand how weather forms, how the water cycle forms on this planet is very, very similar. You just have to, you just can't see it just in the material. You have to include the immaterial. You have to include all sentiments, thoughts, emotions, words, and notions that people carry around with them because they're still part of people's auras, if you will. So on these different levels here in this session, okay, we had to deal with a bunch of stuff, and I agree with you, it was quite sort of physical in a way. It felt a little heavy. There were two areas where I felt it the most. I can still feel it's in my throat area, and here sort of in my lower belly. Okay, second chakra, fifth chakra, you can look this up, sacral chakra, and your brow chakra. And this is exactly kind of what, we all need to work on right now. And that is our expressions. That is what we put out into this world. But it also includes how we communicate with others, how we communicate with our own true self. All right, so gratitude is a wonderful example. We can, of course, point out and criticize everything that doesn't work, or we can consciously choose to focus on all the things that are really good about the situation. Yeah, you can point out the two things that are imperfect or not great yet, or you can choose to focus on the bigger picture and how great it actually is. And yes, nobody will disagree. There's always room for improvement, and to take this room for improvement rather than, judgment as an inspiration, how to be more creative, how to, change up a few things or experiment with a few things. Yeah. The other part is the actual expression, the actual expression of our needs, of our wants, of what it is that we want to share with others. Yeah, our values and our virtues, our needs. And one of the tips that I can give you, because I noticed this talking to so many people, when you speak very fast, a lot of people, especially younger people nowadays, speak very fast. And it comes, I think, this is my personal theory, for two reasons. One is like how all the TikTokers and Instagrammers and YouTubers speak. They all speak very, very fast. Why? Because the attention span has become so low that if you can't get your main topic across within 7 seconds, and if you can't sort of create an emotional reaction in your audience within 20 seconds, they're going to turn off. Okay, that's a social media phenomenon, and we copy this if we watch a lot of social media. So people who watch a lot of social media have a tendency to talk extremely fast. Watch this and catch yourself, because when you're speaking so fast, you can't even feel your thoughts. Do this for a month, guys. Slow down talking. Deliberately. I always say to my students, talk like as if you're talking slow motion. In your brain, it will sound like you're talking slow motion. But watch what happens. Maybe focus on pronouncing the consonants. All right? Yeah, to speak the whole word. Okay, in English, it's very easy to swallow the consonants, and other languages as well. All right? So just slow down speaking. That gives you a lot more room for improvement, because as you are sort of forming your words, you can feel them and you can sort of correct them in real time. You can become much more clear about what it is that you want to say. Okay? Right now, it's almost every other conversation that I have, 50% of what other people try to tell me, I have to ask them, what? Because they're speaking so fast and I cannot pick up anything from them at all. It's just sort of word salad. They're not feeling what they're saying. Okay? So do this for a month. Slow down your speech. Do another thing for a month. make a commitment with yourself to speak only true things, to be truthful. No lies, no white lies, no excuses and justifications. Now you might say, well, but sometimes there are excuses or I'm not talking about, apologizing yourself for things and say, hey, sorry, I'm late, or sorry, I got stuck in traffic. That's okay. No, I'm talking about something else. It is this being truthful with yourself. When, let's say, you're trying to bend reality a little bit. Yeah, when you try to, make things look a little better or embellish a little bit, or, I'm not talking about like con jobs. I'm not talking about scams and straight out lies, although, obviously that's also part of truthfulness. But I'm talking about the little lies, guys, especially the ones that we tell ourselves over and over again until we believe them. All right, so this is almost like an abstinence challenge here for the month of August into September, precisely until the next full moon, to focus on truthfulness, because without that, you cannot learn to discern truth, neither within yourself nor on the outside. You have to kind of calibrate yourself. Yeah, the same with your body. You can't talk about things like healthy diet, okay, and then sort of cheat on yourself and tell yourself, oh, that's just because. No. Be at least truthful with yourself. Say, yes, I was so weak last night. I ate the full bag of chips and I felt terrible afterwards. That's truth. Instead of saying, yeah, well, I had a few, just a few. That's a lie. Okay, you understand what I mean with truthfulness? I'm talking real truthfulness with yourself and others. So slow down, especially your speech, because in order to better communicate yourself, to better express yourself, all right, you need to slow down. Be truthful. Okay? Number 3, make it a habit to more consciously breathe. Most of us breathe too shallowly, and when things are a little stressful, we have a tendency to do this even more so. Yeah, this can lead to all kinds of disturbances in our physical, in our, neurotransmitters, in our emotional, yes, and it can really wear you out, Take conscious belly breaths, do yoga or anything that helps you to breathe more consciously. Yeah, so slow down, be truthful, breathe more consciously. Perceive more consciously. Become more aware of what it actually is that you are latching on to. Whether it's your friend's boyfriend's grandma that is dying, or, your cousin's car breaking down, or whatever, this is all like outside of you, right? How much are you allowing yourself to get pulled into this? Is this true to you? The car problems that your cousin's husband has? Is this important to you? Is this helpful? Yeah. These are things that we need to consider. We need to be more conscious. You can choose what you want to focus on, but be more conscious about what you're perceiving as sort of your reality, as your sort of focal point in the now. And lastly, all this, is really supposed to be part of this spiritual first aid, but this is then basically more sort of the, how you continue, how you cultivate this. Lastly, make sure that you align, that you mingle with the right people. If you're surrounded with people that make fun of spirituality, that make fun of, I don't know, your love for crystals or the way you see the world or whatever, guys, don't try to convince them. They're not bad people. You don't need to judge it. You just need to focus your attention elsewhere, namely where you find people that are more supportive, that are more truthful, less judgmental, more trustworthy. And lastly, say hi to your true self more often. Make this a daily habit, 4 times, 5 times a day. Yeah, and if you want to connect, combine it with, conscious breathing, grounding and centering, okay? Now you sort of killing multiple things with one stone, okay? Yeah, do this more often. Step into that communication with your true self because it's there to help you. It's there to support you, to assist you in finding your way. So yeah, this was a deep session. If you would like to share or ask questions, okay, I will have a forum for this session along with the recording of this video. So you'll receive an email from me with the forum link and the recording. I want to thank you guys all for coming. This was 2 hours, okay, paying attention to your true self. Yeah, more than most people ever spent, with their soul. And I hope to see you again, here at transCODES. We have a sacred self-healing community. We have free online meditations here, discussions, workshops, and of course, lots of healing tools, lots of energy sessions, lots of trainings, training courses. So check my website at transcodes.com to see what works best for you. Yeah, I'm grateful to be of service, and I will see you again very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.